Unless you've been living under a rock for the past year, you've probably heard of the term passport bro or passport bros. The passport bros are nominally men who seek out relationships with foreign women, typically overseas. You might be asking yourself why anyone would do this, given the cost of travel and the difficulties in multicultural relationships. Well, apparently there's a gender war going on. The topic of the gender war and relationships has been very popular in social media, particularly with the Black community. Given the community's lack of marriage and penchant for single-parent homes, many see going overseas as a better option for romance. The Passport Bros movement has become a major source of content online, and I myself have my own story to tell. But personally, I found that most Passport Bros aren't what they claim to be. For me, my journey got started in 2021 when I finalized my divorce and got out of a 9-year marriage. I was trying to find a solution for my relationship woes. Like many men, I turned to the internet and started implementing solutions that I thought would solve my problems. I started working out more, I got a better job, I started traveling overseas, I was dating multiple women at the same time. In all, things were going pretty well, but I didn't really have a sense of community. I felt alone in my journey of self-improvement. Enter the Passport Bros. At that particular time, there wasn't any real organized movement. It was just a bunch of independent men who had the means traveling overseas and seeing what could come of their attempts at getting relationships. Personally, I found success in the Dominican Republic and Kenya, and even now I have a home in Kenya that I visit regularly. On one particular trip, I encountered a gentleman named Lee, who I actually have an interview of and will be sharing. In my conversation with Lee, it turned out we shared a lot of our values, and I thought moving forward that would be the case with most of the men I met. As it turns out, that hasn't been quite the case. While Lee and I were mostly concerned with having a long-term relationship that was fulfilling, having kids, and building a life potentially in Africa, most Passport Bros seemed more concerned about making macaroni noises, which for me was pretty frustrating because one of the arguments that justified going overseas was that Western, modern women were not suitable to be wives. Yet most of the guys seemed to go overseas just to have fun, more often than not paying for it directly. And even when guys did try to pursue quasi-relationships, they seemed to end up with women that they would have rejected in the United States for being too modern. When I really looked into it, it seemed like most of the issue just came down to money. The women that these guys wanted, they couldn't afford back home, so they just went overseas. And I don't personally take issue with that. The thing is, to me, don't try and make an argument about values. Especially when it comes to content creators, you don't really see videos of people's wives cooking for them. I mean, there's some isolated cases, but most of it is just guys trying to give people ideas on how to pick up women in different countries. Another trend that I noticed that was kind of weird to me was a lot more younger men going overseas. Now, this isn't to say that everyone has to be an old fogey who's had terrible relationships to qualify to become a passport bro or an expat or what have you. But I do think you need to have some kind of history of trial and error in the United States so you can at least build some understanding of women in general before you try going overseas with people who have a completely different culture and language. In some of the online communities, some of the younger guys were actually virgins who thought that they would have a better chance at losing their virginity overseas than trying to pick up someone at home. And I can tell you right now that that type of thinking is flawed. With all of this being said, I probably don't know exactly what I'll call myself. I'll probably just end up saying I have an international relationship or something of the sort. I really thought I'd find a community of globe-trotting Andre Johnsons, but it seems like a bunch of black Charlie Sheens. Though I do understand everyone does need to live their fantasy. If you stuck around this far, thanks for watching. I've got a bunch of recorded stuff from Kenya that I always meant to upload but never got around to doing, including my interview with Lee. Make sure you get around to liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will catch y'all later. Don't forget to check out my interview with Lee, which is probably going to be over here, and my most recent video, which is probably going to be over here.